Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks and I'm Zakka Jacob. The Lok Sabha is currently debating the Waqf Amendment Bill, which when it's passed, and that could be later on tonight, maybe even post-midnight, if and when it's passed, it would be a signature achievement of the Modi government in its third term. The government has the numbers. Both allies, TDP and JDU, have backed the bill. In fact, they've given written whips to their MPs to vote in favor of the bill. So the numbers game is very much on the government side. The opposition, though, is saying that this is an anti-Muslim bill, this is a direct infringement on minority rights, but it simply boils down to one question. Why should a quasi-religious, quasi-charitable, quasi-administrative body have such a large land bank in the country? It is the third largest land bank or landowner in the country after the Defense Department and after the Indian Railways. And if such a large land bank owner, such a body with such a huge largesse, why should they not be brought under the ambit of reform? The opposition, of course, is trying to find answers to those questions through the course of the debate as well. It's been going on for the better part of the last 6+ hours, expected to go on for another couple of more hours. 8 hours has been dedicated for this debate. But the moot point is, will this now open up the whole gamut, the whole ambit as far as freeing up religious places are concerned, whether it is the protections through the special act, the Places of Worship Act, or whether it is freeing up Hindu temples, which a lot of Hindu folks on the right have demanded that they be freed out of government control. All of those are still questions up in the air, but first, let's focus on the debate at hand. Let's listen in to what both government and opposition benches had to say today on the Waqf Amendment Bill.
दिल्ली के अंदर में हमारा सीजो कॉम्प्लेक्स है, पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग है, कई प्रॉपर्टीज है और इसको वक्फ बोर्ड, दिल्ली वक्फ बोर्ड ने क्लेम किया कि ये वक्फ प्रॉपर्टीज है। अगर आज हम ये संशोधन लेके नहीं आते तो जिस सदन में हम बैठे हैं, ये पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग, इसको भी क्लेम किया जा रहा था। कल्पना कीजिए 8.72 लाख प्रॉपर्टी वक्फ का है, उसको अगर हम सही तरीके से मैनेजमेंट करता तो हमारा मुसलमानों का ही नहीं है, देश का तकदीर बदल जाएगा। इतना प्रॉपर्टी हमारे पास। गवर्नमेंट किसी भी धार्मिक व्यवस्था को, किसी भी रिलीजियस इंस्टीट्यूशन, कोई धार्मिक काम में हस्तक्षेप करने नहीं जा रहा है, ना ही वक्फ बोर्ड किसी धार्मिक स्थल की व्यवस्था में कोई भी तरीके से हाथ डालने का प्रावधान है।
Now, the Sachar Committee, which was formed under the UPA government, which submitted its report in 2006, also had some specific observations around Waqf properties. It did say that if Waqf properties are actually put up to efficient and marketable use, then they can generate at least a minimum revenue of 10%. Registered properties were a little less than 5 lakhs back then. Right now, it's over 8.5 lakhs. The estimated potential annual revenue back in 2006, a good 20 years ago almost, from those Waqf properties, according to the Sachar Committee, was to the tune of at least 12,000 crore rupees annually. But the Sachar Committee observed, Justice Sachar observed in his report in 2006, that the annual revenues generated from the Waqf properties were only a fraction, were only 163 crores, which meant that the rate of return was a mere 2.7%, which at that time was less than a third of what even bank fixed deposits were giving.
वक्त में कोई गैर इस्लामिक सदस्य आएगा ही नहीं, ये स्पष्टता समझ लीजिए। ना मुतवल्ली गैर इस्लामिक होगा, ना वाकिफ गैर इस्लामिक होगा। मान्यवर, वहां कोई प्रोविजन नहीं है। जो धार्मिक संस्थाओं का संचालन करते हैं उसमें कोई गैर मुस्लिम व्यक्ति रखने का प्रावधान किया भी नहीं है, हम करना भी नहीं चाहते हैं मान्यवर। और मान्यवर, ये जो भ्रम खड़ा किया जाता है कि ये एक मुस्लिम भाइयों के धार्मिक क्रियाकलापों के अंदर, उनके दान की हुई संपत्ति के अंदर दखल करने का है, ये बहुत बड़ी भ्रांति फैलाकर, माइनॉरिटी को डराकर अपनी वोट बैंक खड़ी करने के लिए किया जा रहा है। मन सारे ट्रस्ट के चैरिटी कमिश्नर अलग अलग बन, देश तोड़ दोगे आप लोग, तोड़ दोगे। वक़्फ के 2013 में जो अमेंडमेंट्स आए, अब बिल किरण भाई का है, मगर मैं कह सकता हूं कि वक़्फ का 2013 का अमेंडमेंट न किया होता तो ये बिल लाने की शायद जरूरत न पड़ती।
Now, such a committee had also recommended various measures to try and improve the management of various Waqf boards. It had emphasized on the need for regulation as well as the functioning of the mutawalis, who are usually the caretakers of Muslim religious places, efficient management of records, digitization of records, inclusion of non-Muslim technical experts in the management of Waqf, because at the end of the day, they were not making any money. They were, despite sitting on a huge land bank, the third biggest in the country, the revenues generated out of that land bank were abysmal. Now, all of these are provisions in the new bill, in the new Waqf Amendment Bill that's been brought forth by the Modi government, something that the opposition MPs and various Muslim groups like the All India Muslim Personal Law Board have raised the hackles over. The committee recommended organizational reforms to strengthen Waqf boards administratively, to include at least 2 women members in central as well as state Waqf boards. That is a provision now that the current Waqf Amendment Bill is proposing. Corruption and mismanagement was also highlighted by the Sachet Committee, and they recommended at that time that the Waqf boards be brought under the scheme of financial audit. Right now, they don't have any financial audit. This bill also envisages that these boards be put to regular audit, just like you would audit a non-governmental organization or a registered society or even a corporate for that matter.
आज इस सरकार का इस बिल के द्वारा 4 इनके मूल उद्देश्य। पहला मूल उद्देश्य है कि संविधान को कमजोर करना, टू डाइल्यूट द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। इनका दूसरा उद्देश्य है भ्रम फैलाना, टू डिफेम द माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटीज ऑफ इंडिया। इनका तीसरा उद्देश्य है टू डिवाइड द इंडियन सोसाइटी। हमेशा एक हमारे बीच में एक लिटिगेशन चलता रहे, मसला और बढ़ता जाए, ये उनका उद्देश्य है, टू डिसएनफ्रेंचाइज द माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटीज।
भाजपा एक अलोकतांत्रिक पार्टी है, वो असहमति को अपनी शक्ति मानती है। जब देश के अधिकांश राजनीतिक दल वक्फ बिल के खिलाफ हैं, तो उसे लाने की जरूरत क्या है, जो जिद क्यों कर रहे हैं सरकार। भाजपा चाहती है कि वक्फ बिल लाने से मुस्लिम समुदाय को लगे कि उन पर हक को मारा जा रहा है, वो उद्वेलित हों और भाजपा को ध्रुवीकरण की राजनीति करने का मौका मिल सके।
All right, let me go straight across to our full panel that's joining us on the debate tonight. Nasser Hussain is member of the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Waqf, also Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament of the Congress. Lair Singh Saroya is Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament of the BJP. Dr. Fauzia Khan is the Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament of the NCP-SP. The contention that's put forth in this bill, Nasser Hussain Saab, let me start with you, and you are a member of the JPC as well, is that this is a bill for reform within the Waqf boards. Whether it is adding women members, surely you would agree that there should be a greater, more diverse representation in Waqf boards. Whether it is, adding minorities amongst Muslims, whether it is Shias or Ahmadiyas or Bora Muslims, that again is a provision that's being made forth here. And the most important thing is that the decision of the Waqf Tribunal is not final and binding, that you can challenge this in the High Court and further appellate courts if there are aggrieved parties legally. All of these are moving the needle in the direction of reform. Why then is the opposition opposed to this Waqf Amendment Bill?
Jacob, let me first tell you, I think you are also completely misinformed about this entire bill. You mentioned that 2 women members are being added in this new restructuring of the Waqf Council and the Waqf Board. You go through the 2013 Waqf Act, 2 women members are already there. I am a member of Karnataka State Waqf Board for the past 6 years. 2 women are there in that. The women are already there. This is something they are trying to gain brownie points. It is there in the Act. Pick up a copy of the Act and you will get to know. Second, You said that minority communities among the minority Muslims are being accommodated. Islam has only two sects, that is Shias and Sunnis. There are 14 subsects among Shias and about 60 subsects among Sunnis. Shias and Sunnis both have been accommodated in 2013 and 1995 Act. I am a member. I have a Shia member with me in the board for the last 6 years and from before that also. There are Shia boards, Sunni board and Shia Waqf board in those states where Shias are more in number. Now what these people have added is two subsects among the Shias. So will they have a separate board for every subsect of Shias and Sunnis? That means they will have to have about 74 boards in this country. They are not able to handle even one board. They have not reconstituted the Waqf Council from the time the Modi government has come in place. They have not reconstituted Waqf boards in the states where they are in power. How will they constitute 74 boards in the country? This is only misleading the people of our country. In the endowment boards, do you think there will be a separate board for different schools of thought among Hinduism? Separate caste among Hindus? Separate sects among Christians for the Christian board? Separate sects among the Sikhs for the Sikh Gurudwara? Okay. What is this? What are they trying to tell us? They are telling they want to bring reforms. So let the minister and the prime minister tell us कि what is the reform in this? They say गरीबों की मदद करना. गरीबों की मदद करने के लिए पैसा चाहिए. पैसा कहाँ से आता है? So you told 12,000 करोड़ रुपए आना चाहिए था. कहाँ से आता 12,000 करोड़ रुपए? Do you want the people those are going to masjid to pray to be taxed or to have collect some sort of fees from them?
No,
कब्रिस्तान में दफनाने के लिए पैसे चार्ज करना चाहिए. कहाँ से आएगा पैसा? Just hold on.
No, sir, one second. No. You made a whole bunch of statements. Now, please have the patience to hear my answer also, right?
Zakka,
First of all, sir, I did not say this.
Let me finish and then you can talk.
Okay, no, 1 second. I did not say this, that 12,000 crores is the estimated revenue. This was said by Justice Sachar, appointed by the UPA government when the Congress party was in power. Justice Sachar said this as per 2006 when his report was submitted. This is not CNN News 18 or Zakka Jacob's figure that we've invented.
No, I am not telling Zakka Jacob is telling this. I didn't tell that. I am telling that on your television channel you claimed this. You told Justice Sachar. You tell me where will this 12,000 crores come from? You told that the Waqf board is the third largest land bank in the country. Land owner in this country.
Correct.
Land bank in the landowner. Zakka, do you know? Waqf board in this country doesn't even have 1 acre of land. Waqf board is not the owner of any Waqf property in this country. Waqf boards are only the custodians of Waqf properties. They are not the owners. They are not the owners of any property. Every particular single Waqf is the owner of its property. The committee is the owner, not the Waqf board. Completely misleading the people of this country. Who said it is the third largest bank owner?
Leher Singh Saroya wants to respond to you, but here are the facts. The number of Waqf properties, registered Waqf properties in this country, Nasir Hussain Saab, is 8.72 lakhs. Aparajita Sarangi is also joining us. She is a BJP member of parliament who is also part of the JPC, one of your colleagues in the JPC. Please answer Aparajita Sarangi. Nasir Hussain Saab has made some very definitive points before you joined. One, he is saying not a single property is owned by the Waqf boards. You guys are misleading. He is also saying that, you are saying women members will be part of the board. Already women members are part of the board. That's what he's saying. You are saying that, you will include minorities within Muslims. He says there are already Shia separate boards. So what is this reform that you are talking about? You are really misleading the people. Please answer him on those specific points. First, starting with his claim that, his contention that not a single property is owned by the Waqf board. They are just custodians of the property. They are not owners of the property.
Let's understand the reason behind this action of the government. This has been a meticulous exercise by the government, and I think Nasir Hussain Sahab and I have been party to it. We have sat through 38 meetings, and in fact 284 organizations have been listened to. All organizations have given their different kinds of opinions, and we have incorporated all of them. Now let me tell you, the basic intention of the government is to ensure effective management of the Waqf properties. So we are actually trying to go for better administration, which we call Susashan in Hindi. And we want to uproot corruption in the handling of the Waqf properties. And at the same time, we want to bring about transparency in the entire management of the Waqf properties. So if the government of Prime Minister Modi comes out with the intention to actually, ensure proper governance, proper susashan, what's the hullabaloo about it? I fail to understand. If it is so simple, why should Nasir Hussain feel rattled? And why should there be so much of uproar in the Lok Sabha and on the streets? I think there is absolutely no reason.
She is not answering for the questions that you are raised.
The point is, we want the caretaker, the Mutawali,
will she agree that there were 2 women members in 2013 or not?
The income over a period of time has decreased. It has gone down from 166 crore at one point of time per annum to now just 9 lakh rupees in 2024. This has to be appreciated. We want all the Mutawalis to benefit. We want all the Garib Muslimans to benefit. So what's the big deal about it? If 8.79 lakh properties spread all over the country are supposed to be uploaded in the portal, I think there is no problem in it. In fact, it is good. And we are just talking about the Sachar Committee report of 2006. 2006, he said, if we monetize those properties at that point of time, it would amount to 1.2 lakh crore. So it's a huge, if you go to monetize, it's very expensive properties all over. And most of them have been encroached upon.
No, so ma'am, is the ultimate objective of the government to try and monetize some of these properties, those properties where religious practices have not been followed for years, or those properties that do not have proper documentation, to ultimately monetize those properties so as to benefit the Muslim community? Is that the purpose of this bill? Because that's what the opposition is also saying, that ultimately you are in the business of trying to grab the land that belongs to Muslims.
Not at all. There is no question of grabbing the land. See, let me tell you, there are 280 ASI properties which have been declared as Waqf properties. Archaeological Survey of India, they go for protected monuments. So they were showing us the list. 280 properties have been made Waqf properties. I'm just giving you an example. A couple of days back, I was in Munambam in Kerala. I'll just give you an example, another example, very solid example. About 404 acres of land of 600 families, fishermen families, very poor Christian fishermen. Their land has been actually, declared as Waqf property. So is this right? So wherever, we need to actually, disentangle this whole thing, it will be disentangled. So we are basically trying to go for proper administration, proper governance of Waqf properties. Nobody is touching the Waqf property.
So, Nasir Hussain Saab, why didn't you respond to that? The Catholic Bishop Conference came out with a statement a couple of days ago, basically on the Munambam issue, where one fine morning, 600 plus families, fishermen families, were asked to leave the property because the Waqf had claimed that property. It was 400 acres of land. I can give you n number of examples where one fine morning people have turned up and said, this is Waqf property, you can't inhabit this property anymore. So what happens to that? Should that not be reformed?
Zakka, first let me answer to what Aparajita ma'am was saying. One, she said that she didn't answer any of your questions. She didn't tell about the women, she didn't tell about the minorities of the Muslim community, she didn't tell about from where the money will come. In fact, she accepted they want to monetize by selling this land. Point number 1. Point number 2. So she raised an issue of Kerala. Do you want to know that particular place? It was not the Waqf which said that it is a Waqf property. It is a court which said that it is a Waqf property. It said in 1971. Then there was another case somebody put. Then again court said that it is a Waqf property. Then there was a judicial commission, Nizar commission. The judicial commission said it is a Waqf property. Even then the Waqf board didn't register it. Then a contempt proceedings contempt notice was given to the Waqf, and the court said that they have to register that under Waqf property. Waqf didn't say that. Only for the first time it has gone on the tribunal. Now the tribunal is looking at that case. They are completely misleading. There are 2 times court said it's Waqf property on somebody filed some petition in the court, and 3rd time government constituted a judicial commission called Nizar Commission. Even that commission said it's a Waqf property. I understand that people, those are living there for so many years, they may be Christians, they may be not Christians, they may still purchase the land, some of them are encroachers. My sympathies are completely with them. My party stand is also that they should be protected. But the problem is, only court can decide, because the court has already decided. We have to find a way out and see that how we can help these people. It is not the Waqf board which is claiming it is a Waqf property.
Okay.
Waqf board had to register it on the insistence of the court.
Leher Singh Saraya,
That is the fact.
Leher Singh Saraya
They are
and
mistreating
Fawzia Khan.
people.
Let me open this up. They've also been patiently waiting, Nasir Saab.
Zakka,
It's been 15 minutes. Let's open this up, please.
I am going to sit with you.
Please, let's open this up. 15 minutes into the debate. Leher Singh Saraya is also there with us, and Fawzia Khan is also there with us. Leher Singh Saraya, you've heard what Nasir Hussain Saab is saying. He is saying that the intent of the Modi government is to grab the land. They don't want to, reform the Waqf boards or do this for the benefit of poor amongst the Muslims. All this, diverse representation, talking about women on the board, talking about, minorities on the board, etc., has already been there in the 2013 amendment. Why are you bringing this now in 2025?
देखिए, मैं नासिर साहब को और फौजिया खान जी को आह्वान करता हूं कि वो कल मेरे घर पे आएँ, और ये जो मेरे पीछे आप डॉक्यूमेंट देख रहे हैं, और क्योंकि नासिर साहब कर्नाटका से हैं, उनको पता है कि कर्नाटका में 2012 में एक सरकार ने एक कमीशन का गठन किया था जस्टिस एन आनंद के नेतृत्व में, जो उस समय तत्कालीन उप लोकायुक्त थे। तो उन्होंने बड़ी मेहनत से 4 वर्षों की मेहनत से और सारे जिलों से रिपोर्ट मंगवा करके उन्होंने आनंद कमीशन एक रिपोर्ट सबमिट की थी लोकायुक्ता में, और 2016 में आदरणीय सिद्धरामैया जी की सरकार थी, उन्होंने सबमिट होने के तुरंत बाद में उन्होंने उसको इंक्वायरी ऑर्डर को विड्रा करवा लिया। वो आज भी लोकायुक्त में रिपोर्ट पड़ी है, और उस आनंद कमीशन की रिपोर्ट में किस तरह से विभिन्न तरीकों से कितने घपले किए गए हैं, और हजारों एकड़ ज़मीन कर्नाटक में जो वक्फ बोर्ड की है, उस ज़मीन को कांग्रेस के बड़े नेताओं ने और बड़े और प्रभावी लोगों ने मिलकर के इसको हड़पा है। उसमें नॉन मुस्लिम नेता भी बहुत बड़ी संख्या में हैं जिनके नाम हैं, और हमने उसमें आगे और खोज करने के लिए हमने जिस आधार पर वो लोकायुक्त की रिपोर्ट जस्टिस आनंद बनाई थी, तो सारे जिलों की रिपोर्ट हमने मंगवाई। वो करीब 17,000 पेजेस हैं, उसमें 50,000 पेज अब तक आरटीआई के थ्रू हमारे को मिले हैं, जो उसमें पीछे काफ़ी बंडल मेरे पीछे आप देख रहे हैं। तो नासिर साहब को और मैं इनको लॉ बोर्ड के सदस्यों को और सारे जो मुस्लिम जो गरीबों के प्रति समर्पित हैं, उन सबको मैं आह्वान करता हूँ मेरे घर पे आके देखें, और कर्नाटक की जस्टिस आनंद की रिपोर्ट जो है, कलेक्टर ने जिन्होंने नाम के साथ दाखिला किया, और वो तरीके बताएं कि कैसे कैसे तरीकों से हजारों लाखों की जमीन कौड़ियों के दाम पे कैसे हड़पी गई इन नेताओं के द्वारा। कर्नाटक में बहुत बड़ा स्कैंडल है, और
लेकिन सरकार का इतना पैसा खर्च हुआ है। ये भी बता दीजिए ना, वो उन्होंने एक सवाल भी पूछा था कि देखिए अब ये वक्फ प्रॉपर्टी पे आप कर रहे हो, कल को क्या क्रिश्चियन कैथलिक चर्च के जो प्रॉपर्टीज हैं उस पे भी करोगे? जो हिंदू एंडाउमेंट बोर्ड्स हैं सारे जो बड़े बड़े मंदिर के हैं, क्या उसको भी आप सरकारी कंट्रोल से हटाएंगे? वो तो नहीं करेंगे ना आप?
देखिए, ये बिल्कुल कम्युनल बात नहीं है, ये बिल्कुल जो है गरीबों के साथ किसी भी संप्रदाय के द्वारा अन्याय नहीं होने दिया जाएगा। उस संप्रदाय के बड़े बड़े नेता अगर गरीबों के साथ अन्याय करेंगे तो ये उसका हम प्रतिकार करेंगे, और आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी इसके लिए कमिटेड हैं। गरीब हो, चाहे वो मुसलमान हो, चाहे हिंदू हो, क्रिश्चियन हो, और उन्होंने जितनी भी योजनाएं लाए हैं उन योजनाओं को सबके लिए है, और मुसलमानों के लिए योजनाएं बड़ी बड़ी योजनाएं हैं, लेकिन ये मुसलमान नेता और कांग्रेसी लोग उनका प्रचारित नहीं करते हैं। और सुनिए एक बात और,
Fawzia Khan, in 2006, almost 20 years ago, the Sachar committee had made the exact same recommendations which are there as part of the amendment bill. Regulation and functioning of mutawalis, a minimum wage to be supported for the caretakers of masjids, eidgahs, dargahs, etc. Digitization of the management of records, land records of these various properties, bringing in non-Muslim technical experts for management of Waqf boards, including 2 women members in the central and state boards, bringing Waqf boards under financial audit like you would do with non-governmental organizations or you would do with any registered society. These are all incorporated in the amendment bill that's been brought forth in Parliament today. So why are you opposing what Sachar committee had recommended 20 years ago?
Well, whatever has been discussed, I've been listening, and of course there is substance in what claims have been made. that the Waqf board needs to be empowered, needs to be better functioning, and for that reform is needed. I don't disagree with that. Reform is needed. Sachar committee also had recommended reform. But the reforms that are being proposed in the bill don't have the intent of empowering Waqf boards. The intent of these reforms is to snatch away the autonomy from the Waqf boards. If they had intended reform, they would have helped the Waqf boards with staff, they would have helped the Waqf boards with offices, they would have empowered the survey commissioners with resources to make proper surveys. The Sachar committee has also said that the largest encroacher on Waqf lands, you have made claims that there is so much land, but much of it, most part of it is encroached upon, and the largest encroacher is the state itself. So if the state is an encroacher, the largest culprit, then you are making the state judge in the matters of deciding who is the owner of these lands. One party will decide what the other party is disputing. Is this reform? Is it reform that you put non-community members on the boards? In what way is it going to reform? Will it reform if you take away the strictness of the penalties that are there on the mutawallis and the people who alienate or sell these lands? You are making these penalties mild. You have made them non-cognizable. How will it, you have made them cognizable. So how will this empower? It's a question of understanding. You need to have stricter provisions for corruption. You need to have stricter provisions for encroachments. You need to have a fair way of handling the entire management. So this, what is being brought in is not right. Another thing,
the government properties, the government properties that have been claimed by various Waqf boards across the country are 5,873. The various cases, the legal cases that are currently pending in Waqf tribunals across, again, state boards and boards across the country is 40,951. The cases in the tribunals that have been brought forth by Muslims themselves. So it's not like, you know, Waqf board is claiming either government land or land of other minorities or land of Hindus. There are disputes that have been brought forth by Muslims themselves in these tribunals, 9,942. Now my point is that what Mr. Nasir Hussain is saying, what Dr. Fawzia Khan is saying, is that if you are going to make the district collector the final arbiter for this, now district collector is a Sarkari officer. How can any individual who has small land holdings possibly take on the might of the state? And then the only redressal you are saying is, okay, you can approach the High Court. But you know very well, ma'am, that, you know, it takes years and years for judicial redressal in this country.
Let me come in.
I will answer your question in two parts. Number one, we have to diagnose the problem. We have to understand as to why the government went for the Waqf Act 2025. See, there are 5 reasons. With a very broad heart and with cool mind, we need to understand and we need to actually accept and acknowledge. Number one, unrealized revenue potential. The Mutawalli was not getting as much money as he or she should. And as I told you, I reiterate, in 2019-20, the revenue, the income from all these Waqf properties lying across the country was 166 crore. It has come down to 9 lakh only in 2024. This we must accept and we must acknowledge. Number two, massive encroachment. 58,970 properties as per the WAMSI portal of the Ministry of Minority Affairs as of now today are encroached, which have been reported. Maybe there are many more properties which go unreported. Number three, we must accept that the revenue has come down, the income has come down because of poor maintenance. And number four, pendency of cases, as you rightly said, in the Waqf tribunals. And that is why one of the proposed amendments of the government is the cases will also be appealed in the High Court. Suppose there is something which is not acceptable to the person concerned who is a petitioner, can as well approach the High Court. So we have to make the entire system very responsive, tribunals must actually, go ahead and resolve the pending cases, and those who are not satisfied will go to the High Court in appeal. And last but not the least, lack of transparency and efficiency. Till now, I think it is an understatement when I say that there are 8.79 lakh registered properties on the Vamsi portal of the Ministry of Minority Affairs, spread over 37.39 lakh acres of land. This is an understatement. So I think we really need to know as to how much land is there.
If there is so much land, 8.7 lakh individuals' properties have been registered as per the portal, 8.7 lakh. Why then basic salaries of mutawalis and caretakers are not being paid by the various Waqf boards? Shouldn't that be a basic question to ask?
It's absolutely. Please let me answer.
Zakka,
so let Mr. Nasir Hussain respond to that. Yeah, let him respond. Let him respond, ma'am. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Zakka, you were speaking so much about Sachar committee. Mrs. Aparajita was speaking so much about Sachar committee. One of the recommendations of Sachar committee was that the land other than the area where the religious activity is happening, that should be tried and converted into revenue yielding properties. So who will help them convert this into revenue yielding property? Only the government can help them. So it was proposed that there will be a National Waqf Development Corporation. 2013 Act said that this Nawatco will be started with a seed capital of 500 crores. 2014, Modi government came in. What happened to that Nawatco? What happened to that 500 crores seed capital? What happened to the state support that is supposed to be given to develop these vacant lands into revenue yielding properties? The revenue that is coming out of the offerings that are done on the dargahs or the people those who give chanda in the masjids, that is only enough for the maintenance of those properties and giving salaries to the people those are working there. So you're telling 12,000 crores. Kahan se aayega 12,000 crores? And she is again and again telling this is 168 crores and 163 crores are being realized. You are telling that the board is getting only this much, and then you are reducing the contribution that the Waqf institution give to the board from 7% to 5%. Either you do this or you do that. So you don't even know how the revenue is generated. Zakka, you told me there was no audit process. Who said there was no audit process? Every state board has an audit process. Every state board has a panel of auditors selected by the government of the state. The problem with the entire JPC was, JPC did not deal into all these technicalities. They wanted to drum up support for their bill. They brought in some non-stakeholders, extremely communal, who wanted to do away with this board, and then they tried to drum up support. There is so much to be done. There are land reforms that have land reform acts in some states. There are land ceiling acts. There are Inam abolition acts. There are High Court judgments. There are Supreme Court judgments. There are different commissions. So these are all in contradiction with each other. We need to resolve that. We need to look into those things.
Okay.
You said that there will be a new portal, and the former Minister of Minority Affairs, Mr. Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, said that 100% digitalization is done, and this was started in 2013 after the amendments were passed. Now, why are you saying there will be a fresh database? Don't you believe in your own government?
Aparajita Sarangi, final word. I have to wrap up in 1 minute.
Modi government was there.
Yeah. Aparajita Sarangi.
Yes. Collector is the head of the revenue administration of the district, and collector knows where the land is, what kind of land is. So it's very important to bring the collector into the picture. However, whether a property is Waqf property or not will not be decided by the collector, but an officer above the rank of the collector to be decided by the state government. This is one of the recommendations of the opposition parties, which the JPC agreed to, and today it has been brought to the Lok Sabha. This is one. Number two, I must end this entire debate by saying that the opposition parties, people like Nasir Hussain Sahab, in fact, will continue to oppose any action of the Prime Minister Modi's government. Article 370(35)(a), they opposed. Triple Talaq, what a wonderful bill it was, they opposed. Citizenship Amendment Act, they thought citizenship will be taken away from the Muslims. It never was, it never did so, but they opposed. Agnipath scheme they oppose. So I think it is a matter of
right.
relevance for them. They
Can I
need
get
to
10
remain
seconds?
meaningful
Can I
in
get
the
10
country,
seconds?
and that is why they oppose
Okay.
whatever is positive, whatever good thing is being done by Modi.
I have to completely wrap up. We've hit the half-hour mark. Thank you very much, though, for this fascinating conversation. Nasir Hussain, Parajta Sarangi, Dr. Fawzia Khan, and Leher Singh Saroya for joining us. Like I said, the debate is still continuing in the Parliament, and hopefully the vote will happen sometime later tonight. That's what the extension also has meant for the proceedings in the Lok Sabha. I want to get a perspective from a Muslim point of view, albeit he is a minister in the Yogi government, the BJP-led Yogi government in Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Danish Azad Ansari is the Minister for Minority Affairs in the Uttar Pradesh government. Ansari साहब बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए. ये जो वक्फ बिल जो मोदी सरकार ने लेके आई हैं लोकसभा और राज्यसभा में, सारे विपक्ष जो इंडिया गठबंधन के जो पार्टीज़ हैं वो सारे कह रहे हैं कि ये मुसलमानों के खिलाफ हैं और ये जो माइनॉरिटी राइट्स हैं, मुसलमानों की जो हक है उसको छीन रहे हैं आप लोग. इसके बारे में आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे, या ये क्या अश्योरेंस दे सकते हैं मुसलमान होने के नाते कि दिस इज़ नॉट इन्फ्रिंजिंग ऑन द राइट्स ऑफ माइनॉरिटीज़, पर्टिकुलरली मुस्लिम्स?
देखिए, कोई बात शुरू करने से पहले मैं ज़रूर बताऊंगा कि ये समझने की ज़रूरत है कि वक्फ क्या है. वक्फ जो है ये खुदा की प्रॉपर्टी है, ये दान की गई प्रॉपर्टी है जिसका इस्तेमाल मुस्लिम समाज के वेलफेयर के लिए इस्तेमाल होना चाहिए. मुस्लिम समाज के डेवलपमेंट के लिए, उनकी शिक्षा के लिए, उनके बेहतरी के लिए वक्फ की संपत्तियों का इस्तेमाल होना चाहिए. वक्फ बोर्ड जो है ये एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बॉडी है जो कि इन वक्फ की जो संपत्तियां हैं उन संपत्तियों को का प्रॉपर देखरेख हो, इन चीज़ों को सुनिश्चित करे. ये वक्फ बोर्ड जो है ये इस चीज़ के लिए इसका गठन होता है. सबसे पहली बात, जो भी पार्टी इसका विरोध कर रही है, चाहे कांग्रेस पार्टी, चाहे समाजवादी पार्टी, चाहे जो भी लोग, कि वक्फ बोर्ड जो है ये एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बॉडी है, ये एक प्रशासनिक बॉडी है, ये कोई धार्मिक बॉडी नहीं है. ये सरकार वक्फ बोर्ड का गठन करती है, तो इसको ऐसा ना पेश किया जाए कि ये कोई धार्मिक बॉडी है. ये एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बॉडी है. इसमें नॉन मुस्लिम कई सारे लोग ऐसे पहले से जो नॉन मुस्लिम रहते हैं, वहाँ जो ऑफिस है वक्फ बोर्ड का, वहाँ बहुत सारे नॉन मुस्लिम लोग काम करते हैं. जो प्रशासनिक अधिकारी कई सारे होते हैं वो नॉन मुस्लिम होते हैं. एग्जाम्पल के तौर पे उत्तर प्रदेश में वक्फ बोर्ड जो है माइनॉरिटी वेलफेयर डिपार्टमेंट के अंदर आता है, वहाँ की एसीएस नॉन मुस्लिम है. तो ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बॉडी है, इसको एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बॉडी के एंगल से देखना चाहिए, पहली बात. दूसरी बात क्या है, हम ये कह रही है, ये अमेंडमेंट ये कह रहा है कि वक्फ बोर्ड की प्रॉपर ऑडिटिंग होनी चाहिए ताकि वहाँ से और मैक्सिमम हम रेवेन्यू जनरेट कर पाएँ. तो जो रेवेन्यू जनरेट होगा गवर्नमेंट का क्लेम नहीं होगा उस रेवेन्यू पे वक्फ बोर्ड का ही क्लेम रहेगा. वो जो धन और जो आमदनी होगी जो बढ़ेगी उससे उसका इस्तेमाल उसी के बेटरमेंट के लिए होगा, उसी के विकास के लिए होगा. इसमें क्या गलत है? हम ये कह रहे हैं कि वक्फ बोर्ड में मुस्लिम महिलाओं का पार्टिसिपेशन और पासमानदा मुसलमानों का पार्टिसिपेशन बढ़ना चाहिए. इसमें भी विपक्ष को आपत्ति है. और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट बात मैं आपको ज़रूर बताऊंगा आपके चैनल के माध्यम से, जितने भी हमारे देश के मुस्लिम भाई हैं, और आपको ये बताना चाहिए कि ये ऐसा अमेंडमेंट पहली बार नहीं हो रहा है. इसके पहले भी वक्फ बोर्ड के ऐसे फॉर्मेशन में अमेंडमेंट हुए हैं.
नहीं तो दानिश साहब ये बताइए कि दी ऑपोजिशन जो कह रही है कि ऐसे काफ़ी सारे प्रॉपर्टीज़ हैं, सारे जो वक्फ के प्रॉपर्टीज़ हैं 8.5 लाख से ज़्यादा है, उसमें से कई सारे ऐसे प्रॉपर्टीज़ हैं, चाहे वो ईदगाह हो, चाहे वो मस्जिद हो, दरगाह हो, इवन कब्रिस्तान हो, काफ़ी सारे ऐसे प्रॉपर्टीज़ हैं जिसके कोई पेपर्स नहीं है. ये वक्फ बाय यूज़र जो प्रोविज़न है ये इसीलिए लाया गया ताकि अगर काफ़ी सालों से काफ़ी दशकों से वहाँ पे रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिस चल रही है तो वो वक्फ की प्रॉपर्टी हो जाती है. तो उनका मानना ये है कि सारे ये जो प्रॉपर्टीज़ हैं जिसके पेपर्स नहीं है, जिसके कागज़ नहीं है, वो सारे प्रॉपर्टीज़ को मोदी सरकार कब्जा कर लेगी.
देखिए, ये कहना भी पूरी तरीके से गलत. जो लोग ऐसा बोल रहे हैं, मुझे नहीं लगता कि वक्फ बोर्ड के बारे में उनको पूरी जानकारी है. अधूरी जानकारी लेके उन्हें इस तरीके की भ्रम नहीं फैलानी चाहिए. वक्फ बोर्ड जो है, सबसे पहले मैंने बताया कि एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बॉडी है. ये गवर्नमेंट, हर प्रदेश की गवर्नमेंट वक्फ बोर्ड का गठन करती है अपने अनुसार, और वो वक्फ बोर्ड के गठन जो होता है, वक्फ बोर्ड की जो आदेश होते हैं, उनके जो फैसले होते हैं, उनका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन नीचे डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट के लेवल पे होता है। जिला वक्फ सर्वे आयुक्त जो होता है वो जिला मजिस्ट्रेट होता है। तो इस तरीके से पहले ही ऐसे SDM इसके इम्प्लीमेंटेशन करता है। अगर कहीं कोई ज़रूरत आती है एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का, उसमें हम रोल अदा करते हैं। वक्फ ट्रिब्यूनल जो है, जो वक्फ ट्रिब्यूनल अभी है, उसमें भी हमारे 2 मेंबर, 3 मेंबर में 2 मेंबर नॉन मुस्लिम है। अभी भी हमारे एक जज हैं, वो भी नॉन मुस्लिम है, रजिस्ट्रार है वो भी नॉन मुस्लिम है वक्फ ट्रिब्यूनल में, करंट में, आज के डेट में भी। तो ये कोई नई चीज़ नहीं हो रही है, बस सुधार की दिशा में हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और यही सुधार विपक्ष को पसंद नहीं आ रहा है, क्योंकि विपक्ष कभी भी नहीं चाहता कि मुस्लिम समाज मेन स्ट्रीम में आए, मुख्य धारा में आए।
Danish Azad Ansari, Minorities Minister in the UP government, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. Thank you. All right, shifting focus here on brass tacks. In a few hours' time, US President Donald Trump will be announcing the reciprocal tariffs on America's biggest trading partners. A lot of uncertainty persists. The markets have been jittery in the run-up to the announcement. Even India is unlikely to be spared from the brunt of these tariffs, at least in the immediate term. Now, while it is still possible that India and the United States can wrap up a bilateral trade deal, as was agreed when Prime Minister Modi visited the White House back in February, they are hoping to clinch that deal as early as the fall of this year. There will be temporary trade upheaval because of these reciprocal tariffs. Let's dig right into what the White House press secretary had to say on what to expect today, a day which Trump and his entire bandwagon is hyped up. They've called it the America Liberation Day. So what is it going to liberate, and what does this Liberation Day mean for the rest of the world, for America's biggest trading partners?
The president said last night he has made a decision and a determination. I was with him in the Oval Office earlier, and he is going to announce that decision tomorrow. I don't want to get ahead of the president. This is obviously a very big day. He's with his trade and tariff team right now, perfecting it to make sure this is a perfect deal for the American people and the American worker, and you will all find out in about 24 hours from now.
And are the car tariffs going to go into effect on April 3rd as scheduled?
Correct. Yes, they will.
Okay.
But what if they're wrong?
They're not going to be wrong. It is going to work. And the president has a brilliant team of advisors who have been studying these issues for decades. We are focused on restoring the golden age of America and making America a manufacturing superpower. My understanding is that the tariff announcement will come tomorrow. They will be effective immediately.
So what does it mean for India? India's largest trading partner is the United States for the last 2 fiscal years running. It's also one of the few countries that India actually has a substantial trade surplus with. If you were to go by 2023-2024 numbers, India's major exports to America include engineering goods, electronic items, gems and jewelry, pharmaceutical products to make generic drugs, light crude oil, and there's much more. There's a whole list of areas in the manufacturing sector which India exports to the United States. India and the US have significant pharmaceutical trade relationship. In fact, India is one of the largest suppliers of generic medicines to the United States. It meets almost 40% of American demand for non-patented medications, also supplying almost 50% of generic prescriptions for US patients. Now, the current export value of pharmaceuticals, generic compounds to the US stands at a little over $10 billion, the tariff for which ranges between 0 to 2%. Gems and jewelry is another, again, labor-intensive sector, another important Indian export to the United States. The current total export value of gems and jewelry, both rough cut and finished cut, that is sent back to the United States is about $7.5 billion. The average tariff for that is 5.5%. Apart from pharmaceuticals and gems and jewelry, the trade dynamic also extends to, again, mass labor-intensive sectors like textiles and apparels and leather. The export value of textiles and apparels currently is just a shade under $6 billion, and the tariff there ranges between 14 and 30%. And last but not the least, in the realm of mineral fuels, particularly refined petroleum, the export value we're currently looking at is about $5.5 billion, and the tariff there ranges from 0 to 13%. Now, Trump has famously called these tariffs, or reciprocal tariffs, as he's put it, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. He's wasted no time in targeting America's major trading partners, whether it's Canada and Mexico, the 2 biggest neighboring trading partners, whether it is China or even India and the European Union. So it was a bit of a tightrope walk for Prime Minister Modi when he went to the White House back in February to try and navigate this new trade environment that Trump seeks to envisage. India's high tariffs on specific items are not unique. India's weighted average tariff, if you were to exclude MFN status, is 17%. It is lower than some other countries, but of course it's much higher than what the weighted average tariff tariffed by the United States is. India is open to reducing tariffs through the free trade agreement. They're trying to get through a bilateral trade agreement before the end of this year. India's tariffs are widespread and they fit in with the global pattern. Other countries too use tariffs as a means to protect some domestic industries. High tariffs are also part of a broader economic strategy which puts India's interests first. All right, I want to first go across to Brian Abel from CNN. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Brian, just for the benefit of our viewers, what are the expectations from Donald Trump? There's supposed to be a big Rose Garden briefing later on this afternoon. It's going to be the first time that President Trump is going to be speaking to reporters and to the rest of the world, really. The first time in his second term from the Rose Garden. The entire cabinet is going to be there. What can we expect?
Yeah, so much of what's going to happen here today at the White House is actually unknown at this point. And a lot of that is by design. The White House and President Trump trying to keep a sense of secrecy here about these upcoming tariffs and what the announcement is. We do know it's going to happen at 4 p.m. at the Rose Garden. It'll be the first event of the Trump administration in that space here at the White House. That's significant alone, but it's also notable the timing. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern time, which will be when the U.S. stock markets are closed. So we won't see that reflection based on whatever is announced today in those stock markets until later. But so much of this stuff is unknown at this point. We do know that late into Tuesday night, the president was still listening to different plan options and still weighing those options from allies, from aides, as well as friends that are calling the president into the late hours. We did see that President Donald Trump did post on his Truth Social account this morning saying it's Liberation Day in America. And we also heard yesterday the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt was saying that the team was still working to perfect the tariff plan. But at this point, it's still unknown exactly what to expect, although we are hearing that there are some different options. One would be a 20% universal tariff on all imports. That would be considered the most extreme option, but it would, however, bring in the goal of bringing in billions of dollars of new revenue to offset expected tax cuts by the Trump administration. A second option would be a tiered system. That would be a set of flat rates for groupings of countries with higher rates for, quote, the worst tariff offenders, according to this White House, and then lower rates for others. There's also the idea of the true reciprocal tariff plan, and that plan would be individual rates for each country. That would be a very difficult plan to execute effectively because of how complicated an undertaking, how complex our system is, that would be quite the effort to make that happen. But there's another plan that's being studied by this White House, and that's a targeted plan, a targeted flat rate plan for just some countries. We have seen President Trump use tariffs, levy them, and then take them back after negotiations with other countries. And he is leaving that window open for negotiations with whatever he announces today, though he does say that will only be after these tariffs go into effect. So whatever happens here today is surely to reshape both the global economy as well as the American economy.
All right, Brian Abel, live for us tonight at the White House. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. All right, so a big day, not just for the United States, but also for the rest of the world, because Trump is promising this to be, quote unquote, Liberation Day, when the reciprocal tariffs will kick in. Gavin Bade is the trade and economy correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. He's now joining us from New York. Gavin, thank you very much for speaking with us. Obviously, you know, markets around the world, there's a great degree of nervousness. People don't quite know what the impact of this is going to be. Let's try and sort of decode this from whatever we know from Trump officials, people who've been speaking on background, etc. What form or shape will these reciprocal tariffs take? What is your best understanding?
Well, I wish I could tell you we're only mere hours away from the final decision for Trump here, and they're weighing a few different options, is the last we heard late evening last night going into this morning. One is, as you said, a reciprocal tariff that would identify, a different tariff rate for each country, and then that tariff rate could be negotiated up or down depending on how Trump feels the country is doing. We saw the Indian government announce that they would take down some tariff barriers yesterday, and I think that is in hopes that they will not get hit as hard by the tariffs. But there are other proposals on the table as well. Probably the furthest on the other end is what they would call a universal tariff, or a tariff of up to 20% that would apply to virtually all imports and virtually all U.S. trading partners. The idea there is that would be used to raise money for the federal government and would not be as negotiable as, say, a reciprocal tariff. And then there are a few options in the middle. They could do what they call tiered tariffs, where some nations get a low tariff, some nations get a medium tariff, and some get a high. Or they could do an across-the-board tariff, but only on a subset of nations, only on, a dozen or 20 nations, and that could go up to 20%, but it would be probably a little bit lower. So they're really burning the midnight oil in Washington. They have been, and I think they, still have to come to a final decision here in the final hours before this announcement.
So if it's going to be a country-specific tariff, this reciprocal tariff business that Trump and his team have been talking about, so in India's case, for example, the MFN weighted average tariff on American imports is somewhere in the range of 10-11% or so. Vice versa, for Indian imports into the United States, it's about 3% or under 3%. So if it's going to be country specific, are we looking at, in the case of India and US, a straight up 10% markup on every Indian product that is sold into the United States?
I think that is a good starting point for the analysis. It's that Trump has said repeatedly that, when it comes to reciprocal tariffs, he's always said what they charge us, we will charge them. But it's a bit more complicated than that, because Trump has also said that he wants his economic team to take into account what he calls non-tariff barriers. So these are regulations on foreign firms, on U.S. firms, in this case in India, and sometimes subsidies that foreign governments, in this case the Indian government, would provide for their own domestic producers. Trump's team sees those as discriminatory, and he has asked them to take those things into account. Exactly how they will calculate the tariff rate, I think, is still unknown to us right now. Trump has said in recent days that if they took all of those non-tariff barriers into account and did truly reciprocal tariffs, that the rates would be so high that he would be, quote, embarrassed to charge other countries that rate. We took that in the press as an indication that maybe he would go a little bit easier on people in the final tariff decision. But then we also know that in the final days, Trump has gotten a number of plans from his senior staff, and each and every time he's gone back and said, we need to go harder, we need to be more aggressive. So we've really seen him rhetorically been on all sides of this issue in recent days and weeks here, and I think it's just really contributed to the uncertainty toward this big tariff unveiling that will happen only in a few hours here.
And one final word. So, one inherent problem amongst the many with the idea of tariffs and reciprocal tariffs that Trump and his team have been talking about is, different products are charged at different rates. In the case of India, US, for example, milk and agricultural products have a much higher tariff here in India. Industrial products, machines probably have a lesser tariff. Is the Trump team talking about any such idea where, individual products or sectors are also going to be targeted?
That was one of the big questions here when Trump said we're going to do reciprocal tariffs. All of the economists in the U.S. and globally said, well, will they go through the whole tariff code and try to equalize tariffs on each product? That would be a gargantuan task, especially if you're trying to do it for all of the U.S.'s major trading partners. I mean, we're talking about millions of tariff lines here, and I think the feeling is from economists I talk to is they simply have not had enough time to go through and calculate tariff line by tariff line a different number for each nation and each product. And so if they do a reciprocal tariff number, my expectation is that it's going to be for all goods coming from, say, the Indian economy. And maybe that can be negotiated up or down over time. But that's part of the difficulty here, is that Trump has asked his team to do this very, very quickly. And so anything that they come up with is perhaps not going to be as thought through and as calculated as if they had months to put this thing together. But Trump has put a real premium on speed here. He wants to reset trading relationships very quickly, perhaps his biggest priority of his second term to this point.
And very quickly, just on that last point that you said, so these reciprocal tariffs are going to be in place for so long as individual countries do not get into some kind of a trading arrangement with the United States. So, for example, in the case of India, I think they've already had some kind of preliminary talks last week. They're talking about, clinching a bilateral trade agreement by the fall. Some would say they're being very optimistic about that. But if they do manage to do that, then Trump is open to the idea of, lowering those reciprocal tariffs, country specific.
Yes, I think, Trump is and always has been a deal maker. So he will want to look very tough today. He will want to, scare trading partners and will put up with scaring the markets. But if he can come through and say, look at this deal we've gotten, Indian companies are going to invest in the United States. They are going to allow us to export to India more. This is good for farmers. This is good for U.S. businesses. Well, then I think a deal can be done. The key word for Trump in all of this has been flexibility.
All right, Gavin Bade from the Wall Street Journal, thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, fingers crossed it will be hopefully for the better and not for the worse. These reciprocal tariffs, which Trump and his team have been teasing and threatening for pretty much the time that he's been in office in this second term. Thank you very much, Gavin.
Well, it's been my absolute privilege. Thank you.
Shabba!
Viewers, it's a watershed historic day on the road to equality. The will of the people, as expressed in Parliament, has defeated the politics of appeasement practiced by certain parties that shockingly allowed for a law to remain on the books that privileged the rights of one community over all others. By late tonight, viewers, the government will have the numbers to amend the Waqf Act of 1995. The Waqf Act of 1995 allowed Waqf to arbitrarily take over lands of other communities, and even the government. Imagine, thanks to Congress governments and Congress supported coalition governments, the Waqf boards had gained so much arbitrary